was 11, Daddy gave my talented mom a guitar for her birthday. I came home from a typical boys' night out, riding bikes and shooting fireworks. And there it was. Mom, it's not your guitar, it's mine, don't touch it. All right. But she came around, she sat when they played some chords and handed it to me. Don't break it, and go wash your hands. That's how a guitar became a constant in my life. I taught myself how to play with no one ever having to tell me to practice. I learned with music books and a good ear. Adrenaline and obsession fueled my passion, and by my birthday, I got to pick out my very own guitar. I'd sit for hours in an old rocking chair given me by my granddad. I started with folk songs, and then other stuff, pop music and show tunes, then tried writing my own songs. In college, I performed in talent shows and coffee houses in the student union, at sit-ins and protests, socials in the women's dorms. I wanted to be a professional musician, singer, songwriter. I developed a business plan and a repertoire, and when I dropped out of graduate school, which didn't go over all that well with my mother and dad, I created a group. 5 years I worked at it, playing universities and colleges, bars and dives, touring the country in a great big blue Plymouth van with creature comforts, guitars and sound system in tow. My group produced an album, and we sold records and cassette tapes and T-shirts after shows. I became a seasoned performer, and I enjoyed a modest success. But there was something else in my heart, classical guitar music. I'd fallen in love with Bach, Johann Sebastian. At sound checks and breaks during our shows, you'd hear me, either backstage or if it was a bar, I'd be out back by the dumpster practicing. Bach's harmonies and chord structures gave clarity to the beauty of music. And learning Bach revealed to me some sense of an order or wonder in the universe. Not yet 30, on one of my many New York City adventures, I came upon a classical guitar studio I'd heard about in Midtown. I like wandering into music stores to discover what fine instruments may be there. Playing one guitar and then another, I kind of became aware someone was maybe listening. He must have gotten an earful, but I was lost in discovering these guitars, the aromatic woods and lacquered finishes, the joinery and the tones. I finally glanced over to see the only other person in the studio, a very young man holding a guitar but not playing. And then a moment later, I began hearing a guitar solo of Francisco Tárrega, the composer. And this time it was I who got an earful. I spun around in delight to see it was this youth playing Tárrega, this most difficult of guitar music, with such grace and ease. He couldn't have been more than 20, yet gifted in virtuoso ability to play. His thin, sure fingers danced over the fretboard. There followed a brief bantering of broken English and Spanish, and he explained to me the right-hand technique and the very precise dexterity necessary to play Tárrega. You should play this, senor. I am not going to learn this piece. His eyes widened, and he got real excited, and he looked at me, and he says, you can play this. Well, I knew my skill level. It did not include Tárrega. I turned to continue my tour of the studio. Con su permiso, por favor. Taking hold of my left hand, out of the studio we went, onto the busy Midtown street, down a few doors to a sheet music store. Still holding my hand, he led me in. Wait here, please. This was a strange adventure. I watched as he pulled a piece of sheet music from a shelf. He placed the Tárrega work in my hand. He clasped his hands around mine, and he looked me dead in the eye. You love this music. You must learn it. I have heard you play. I know you can do this. Well, I didn't want to offend him. Okay, I'll study the music here a while. Thank you. I stood there for some time, absorbed in music I knew I would never learn, but for a few bucks, I could keep it in my collection, and that pleased me. I turned to address him once again, but the gentle man with enormous talent had disappeared, gone. The hour was late. I had so many things to do while in Manhattan, but in passing through the vestibule on the way out, I happened upon a treat, the music store bulletin board. Here you will find notices for lessons offered, instruments for sale, audition calls, and reviews. and in a corner of the board, I saw a photograph and a clipping. There was the young man, formally attired in white tie and tailcoat, pictured in a review of his Carnegie Hall debut. Wow. I stepped out from the store, struck by all that had transpired. I stood there recalling him playing Tárrega and then imagining him playing etudes and concerti in that world-famous hall. Buttoning my coat, I pondered my route, looking at nothing, and then at the building across the street and a big steel door, and then a sign on that door, and it was the stage door entrance to Carnegie Hall. In my urban wanderings of the day, I'd stumbled onto the great hall itself and into this great serendipity. Tárrega's music became my obsession. 2 years of study, frustration, mistakes, and practice consumed me before hearing this music from my own guitar and by my own hand. And yes, I did earn that joy, but not before a stranger on West 56th Street helped me to see beyond my own horizons. Performing and an unsteady income eventually lost their luster. What's more, I lost my grip, and that order and wonder of the universe, broken dreams suck. I abandoned my music career, and I found sensible work, designing and building, but I never have forsaken music as my muse. Still I play, and of my own career that took me no further than that stage door of Carnegie Hall, I am at peace. So few can grace the stage of Carnegie, and most all of us will never be among its audiences. What then is for the rest of us? At a folk festival years ago, I visited the busy green room where a musician friend awaited his time to perform that evening. And in a corner, talking with my friend, I all of a sudden began playing what I had never played before an audience, Tárrega. And the music flowed, just as it must have flowed from Maestro Tárrega himself, from the generations hence, from the young virtuoso in New York, and now from me. This beautiful sound brought the busy, noisy green room to a hushed still. I had again found that order and wonder in the music, and I realized there that I have never once held an audience in my hand. It had been the music all along. And to be one of its messengers is reward enough. Sadly, I was never able to give anything in return to the man who gave me so much. I don't recall we ever introduced ourselves. I failed to note his name on the review, and I've searched for him in catalogs and vinyl record and CD bins in musty used bookstores. Twice I have visited with attendants to the Carnegie Hall archives, and I've never found him. A good deed often goes unacknowledged and unheralded. And an old piece of sheet music can sometimes just go missing over a lifetime. I keep that Tárrega music on the stand near my guitars, still. The long ago struggling and notation of my struggle are evident on its worn and dog-eared pages. I have not forgotten. It was a good deed, so I keep the music there for those who see. And I've written this for him now, so some could know. Pour some wine, my friend, and I'll play Tárrega too.